NFL by storm. He's 19-3 as a starter. He's won the MVP. Did that last year. However, he's 0-2 as a starter in the playoffs here, losing as the number one seed in 2019. In those two losses, the Ravens' offense averaged 3 times the number of turnovers and half the points scored compared to the regular season. So, since 1950, 31 quarterbacks have started 0-2 in the playoffs, and only Eli and Peyton would eventually go on to win the Super Bowl. Okay? In or out? It is too soon to worry about Jackson's slow playoff start.
I'm going to say inbounds of that, BT. I think he's still very young. He's still learning how to be that guy on the next stage. Obviously, he dominates the regular season, as we saw at the end of his first year, and then obviously in his MVP season last year. But playing in the postseason is a different animal. It's a different level of preparation. It's a different level of intensity. Every mistake is magnified significantly, as we saw this past season. And he'll learn from that. And he's got a lot of I think support that's developing around him as his defense becomes one of the best in the league, and his offensive skill position guys start to, take that step as well. I'm going to say, inbounds. It's a little too early to be worried about Lamar Jackson on the second stage, the playoff stage in the NFL.
He's 23 years old.
Exactly,
of course it's
right.
too early.
That's exactly right.
I mean, come on. He's won 19 out of 23 games, 22
Wow.
as a starter. I mean, the Chargers game, that was his first one a couple of years ago. I mean, that was among the uglier playoff games I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Who was the one who had the Texans? Was it Hoyer who had the 5 picks or whatever it was?
Yeah, I think it was Brian
Right?
Hoyer. Yeah, because he played great at the end of the regular season. They got in the postseason, and he looked like a shell.
Yeah, I think that was maybe 6 years ago. That was a really bad one. Didn't Kerry Collins have a really ugly one?
Super Bowl.
Well, no, before, not just the Super Bowl.
Yes,
Did
with
he have another one?
when he was with Carolina, and I forget the circumstances. Yeah, but
I think Jake Delhomme, didn't he throw 5 or 6 picks one game? I mean, There's been some ugly ones. There's been some meltdowns. But Lamar Jackson is just learning how to play football at this level. Are you kidding me? Now, listen, I'm not going to put him in for multiple MVPs like some. I'm not going to put him in as an all-time great yet. I need to see, once he stops running, and that's not going to happen anytime soon, but eventually he will. I want to see where he is, how prolific of a passer he is, and he's certainly functional, but he needs to be better than functional to be an all-timer. But the kid's incredibly talented, and he shows great aptitude to get better from one year to the next. So I anticipate this year, even if he's not the MVP, that certain aspects will be better in year 3 than they were in year 2. Way too early to worry about him. Out of bounds. The Warriors, they've got the worst record in the league now, and they've got the best shot to land the first overall pick coming up in the NBA draft here. Now, the San Francisco Chronicle, Teak, reports that if the Warriors win the lottery, they would likely take Georgia guard Anthony Edwards, all right? He's 6'5" shooting guard who put up 19 points a game this past season. He's only year at Georgia. So in or out, considering the Warriors' already small roster, it would be a mistake to take Edwards number 1.
Now, I'm going to say inbounds of this.
Are you?
Yeah, I don't think they need to do this. You got to listen to my reasoning here. You might like some of this, especially if you still have a little bit of an affinity for the Golden State Warriors. So let's just assume that the Golden State Warriors get the number 1 overall pick, and there's options there from Wiseman to Edwards, etc. I think that they have a chance to, because what they need is a rim runner, right? They need a guy who's big, a good defender, like James Wiseman. But there's others who really want James Wiseman and/or Edwards. So what I think the Golden State Warriors should do is trade out of that pick and maybe go back to Chicago and maybe make a deal for Lauri Markkanen, who wants out, right? He wants out anyways. He's he's a stretch. You teach him the defensive principles. He can shoot, right? He fits perfectly in there. I mean, or you could get Otto Porter, who actually is a really good three-point shooter for a big man as well. But make that deal with Chicago, who will be around, 8 or 9 or something like that.
Yeah.
They want to come up, get
7.
one of these.
7 or 8. Yep.
7 or 8. Get one of these impact players.
Wow.
Then you go pick up a rim runner like Nerlens Noel or Hassan Whiteside, whoever one of these free agent big men that are on the market right now. Fill that need there, and get a veteran player who can help you win. The reason you need to do that, BT, is because Steph is 32, Clay is 30, Draymond Green is 30. Their window is 3 years, maybe 4 to win another one.
4 seems a little ambitious.
Yeah, I'm saying 2 or 3.
Quite ambitious.
I'm saying 2 or 3. not 3 or 4. So you got to do it now, man.
Wow.
You don't need a project. So I'm going to say inbounds. It would be a mistake.
Okay, I disagree. I would say out of bounds, but I want to preface you really do lay that out pretty well. Like, that's a very believable position. Like, if you're running the Warriors and you present that to ownership, that's more than plausible. That's a well thought out scenario. So I give you some props there. Here's why I disagree. First of all, Anthony Edwards, the player comp, not that these are always accurate, but he is comped to 2 guys pop up, Donovan Mitchell and Dwayne Wade. So right away off the player comp, I'm saying, okay, that's even more incentive based on the age of Steph, and Clay's not too far behind him. Plus, let's see how he is with the knee issue. I want to bring in, if he's one of those 2 guys, then he's a superstar. If he's like Dwayne Wade or Donovan Mitchell, he's a superstar. Andrew Wiggins only played 12 games a year ago. Got a little more. What is Wiggins, 6'8", 6'9"?
Yeah, something like that.
He's not the rim runner you need.
No.
Fair point, but he's certainly not 6'2", 6'3", 6'4". He's longer than that. And a lot of people, while I didn't love the trade, a lot of people actually think that he could flourish if they decide to keep him. Now, the other problem, too, is all the other guys that you might take if you don't trade out. And so if you don't subscribe to Tiki's thought about trading out, I mean, listen, you can tell me James Wiseman. I'm not taking James Wiseman number 1. Every basket he made was from a foot away. Come on, I'm not, and I don't care about what the improprieties. I don't care. I just don't know if he's as good as people think. The kid from France, the point guard, Killian Hayes, and nobody really knows truly what it is, what he is. LaMelo Ball, all right, I know he's talented. They shot horrendously. Everybody tells me he's this great player. He didn't shoot well in Australia.
Yep.
I mean, Obi Toppin, who we love from Dayton, a Skywalker, but he's going to be 23. Usually you go the other way for the first overall pick. This is a really weird.
Yeah.
Colton Anthony's not what we thought.
Right.
Precious Achiuwa's not what we thought coming into.
I
don't know who the hell I take.
There's a kid from Israel, too, that I saw today.
Yes.
I'm like, who the heck is he?
You know what? I'm forgetting his name. I forget his name. A lot of people, I think Fran Fraschilla, who was really good on the international player.
Yeah.
Pretty sure Fran gave him a very positive stamp, and Fran's very adept at that. So I'm going to say out of bounds, it would be a mistake if Carson Edwards is like the projectable comps, a Mitchell or a Wade. I would take him. I think he's the best player. The SEC is already bringing football players back onto campus to get ready for the 2020 season. However, to no surprise, 5 Alabama and 3 Auburn players have already tested positive for COVID-19. Now, a few positive tests we saw already here at Oklahoma State and Iowa State, Texas A&M, and some smaller schools like Arkansas State and Marshall. So, not surprisingly, there's positive tests, as you would think. In or out, the number of positive tests so far is actually a good sign for college football. How do you take that?
I'm going to say out of bounds of this, BT, because when you think about the number here, so let's say 5 out of 100 or 120 or so roster at Alabama. That's like 5%, man. That's a big number that seemingly could only grow if these guys are around each other much more. Now, the reason that you would say go the opposite of me and say it is a good sign is because, they were exposed and they overcome it and they get healthy. It's kind of like the, what was his name? Mike Gundy's stance with his college players. But I'm going to say out of bounds here because I think that kids think that they're they're immune to this thing.
Yep.
And if they get sick, it's just them getting sick, which is dangerous, not just for them, but also the players around them, the coaching staff around them, the students when they ultimately come back, if they come back. I'm going to say out of bounds of this one.
I'm going to disagree again, and I'm going to this one I feel pretty strongly about. Not that I wasn't married to the Warriors point where I disagree, but this one this one felt really like as soon as I read this, I'm like in bounds. I'll tell you why. Based on where we are in the calendar, there is enough time to tweak, if necessary, the protocol for each school. Like right now, imagine going through this early wave and then, gathering all this momentum. Hey, man, listen, there's really no positive tests. I mean, so far, so good. Looks like the college football season might start on time. Here we go. And then all of a sudden, now we very well might get a second wave. We'll find out. But all of a sudden, there was this influx, this just mass boom of positive tests too late.
I see where you're going.
It'll be like, oh boy, it's almost August here, and there's 23% of the kids on the programs that have tested positive.
That's a good point.
The fear would probably force schools to tap the brakes, and maybe the season goes away at that point.
Yeah.
It's June. The fact that these programs I mentioned are still going forward with, with the workouts and, obviously pulling back, and now you have to quarantine, and then you have to self-assess and all that. That's fine. I think this is a positive, provided nobody's seriously ill and nobody dies, but based on the numbers, the resilience of, of the young body will probably fight through COVID. So I say inbounds to that.
Tune in next time for another edition of Inbounds or Out of Bounds with Tiki and Tierney.